Hey everyone, this is your host, as always, Stephen Shinder of Delayed Replay. This is not an alternate universe. I just really want to be real with all of you. I'm not pretending I'm doing that alternate universe thing. This is a real world. All that is a podcast. There, obviously, there's no universe where movies that got delayed came out on time that I know of anyway. But yeah, all that is make believe. But I I have a very important announcement that I wanted to get into, which is that, geez, this is really hard to say. I'm seriously thinking of winding down the podcast, and there are multiple reasons for this. When I started this podcast, it was in an effort to entertain people during everything that was going on in 2020. And I thought, well, this is a very unique idea. I'm sure lots of people will enjoy this, making stuff up for movies as if they came out on time and the world wasn't what it was. It's a different universe. And people enjoyed it here and there. I know the people I've had on the show certainly enjoyed it, and there were emails, feedback here and there, but it never felt like the podcast, despite that idea and the improv and the comedy, it never felt like the podcast gained as much popularity as I would have preferred or one might have expected given the idea of it. And so over time, I've seen the stats. I know that this is a very niche podcast or niche audience, whichever. So, and even though people do listen here and there, there's not as much feedback. So it kind of feels like the podcast is mainly for me, or rather, me and the guests that I have had on the show. And that was fine. I mean, the conversations would always be fun. We'd make each other laugh, me and whoever else was on the show. And I appreciate all their efforts and all the time that they took to be on the show. But of course, I'd have to edit each episode, and that would take up some time. Um, of course, from season two onward, and we're like a few episodes into season four right now, I decided to go, or maybe it was season three that I started doing this. So, like, started to go every other week, put out a new episode to make things easier for myself. Because, I'm a writer. I mean, you've heard the spiel at the end of each episode. I mention the book that I've been working on, that I've been wanting to put out for so long, and it's finally coming. Might be May-ish, possibly June, I'm thinking. But yeah, the editing sometimes took up some of my time, and got more things going on. There's also my other job that I do, and there's also the podcast slash vlog Yesshift, which I do with my dad, and that has felt comparatively more fulfilling than delayed replay as of late, because a lot more people tune in, whether it be live or in the archive. They watch or they listen, and they comment. There are lots of comments, and we've been able to interview people from the band Yes, or musicians who've worked with musicians in Yes, and that really changed my perspective of the whole podcasting thing. It made delayed replay feel relatively small. So, as I kept doing that, I was like, why am I still doing delayed replay. And like I said, it feels like it's just for me and the people I have on the show. Um, so yeah, I've been thinking of winding down the podcast, but I didn't want to just stop it like all of a sudden and uh, catch audiences by surprise, or like not even mention that it's stopping and just give up, because I hate when podcasts do that, when they stop putting out new episodes and don't put out an explanation. So there are a string of episodes, a batch of episodes that have already been recorded and still need to be edited and will be put out still every other week, from here until we get to the final one. So that'll be a little while, and as you listen, it'll be clear like how soon the final episode is coming. I'll have to add some stuff in post to sort of indicate that sort of thing. But I've also been thinking, maybe the reason not many people tune into delayed replay whenever I put out a new episode is that each episode is about a film or what have you that we or that I post about or record about months, sometimes even a year or so ahead of when it usually comes out. So by the time it comes out in real life, people aren't checking out that episode, if that makes sense. I feel like with a podcast about movies, people are more likely to tune in to an episode about the movie around the time it actually comes out, and if it's new at that time. So I have been kicking around the idea of maybe replacing delayed replay with a different podcast that actually talks about real current movies, taking out the improv aspect, the make believe, and just being real. So that we can talk about current movies in real time. Now, there are a couple ways I've been considering doing this. Um, again, like, I don't know if something like this would be successful, so I'm sort of going to be testing it out by including bits of new film discussion at the end of these upcoming pre-recorded episodes of Delayed Replay, so that way people can listen to the improvised topics, and then uh it'll shift to like the real real world segment, in which people, if they want to avoid spoilers, they can just tune out before like that those ending segments. And I would talk about a current movie or a recent movie, something new. um I've been wondering about whether I should maybe also talk about stuff that's new to me that I see, and maybe as like a little tangent before talking about the new movie. But yeah, it's an experiment. I'm gonna see. It's hard to get in the groove of talking about a new movie. Sort of a backdoor pilot thing on delayed replay, and when we put out the final delayed replay episode that's been pre-recorded and will need to be touched up in post, um, I'm debating whether to make the new podcast part of that same feed. Like if you're subscribed to delayed replay, the new podcast will still come out in that feed, but maybe under a different name, and you'll see the title of that podcast in the episode name, perhaps. Maybe like maybe it's in parentheses, and it says what topic it'll be. Or maybe, um, like I won't do that for these upcoming pre-record delayed replay episodes, but um, actually, I'm like confusing myself. In case you can't tell, I'm like mulling this over on the spot. But okay, yeah. So after the final delayed replay episode comes out, I'm considering like once it's just the real current movies from that point on, you'll maybe the new podcast name will be in the episode titles. Um, Another possibility is just mentioning the title like in these last delayed replay episodes so that people listening will know what podcast to tune into next and make a new feed for that. Or maybe I post the new podcast in the same delayed replay feed and also create its own feed, post in both places. It's a little bit more work, but it's not that much work. And I'm considering different title ideas. I'm not quite happy with, um, I shouldn't say I'm not happy with what I've come up with. It's just I'm not quite sure if I've nailed down a name that really feels like the best fit for a new podcast. Like maybe real current movies or new movies, real universe, something like that. Um, and again, like, regardless, it's an idea I want to try, but it's not one that I'm so sure could last a long while. Just because I keep getting busier and busier, but it's something I want to try out and give a shot. But if there's not as much feedback for this new podcast, um, or even like during these last final delayed replay episodes, then I'm not so sure that it'll go anywhere. If there's no comments about them during these final episodes, maybe I won't launch it. Or if there are, then maybe I will launch it and then see how much feedback I get. And depending on that, the new podcast could continue for a while. I don't know. Again, it depends on listenership, feedback, time, how busy I am. But yeah, I feel like more people would tune in if it's a new current movie. There doesn't seem to be a big enough audience for what I've been doing with delayed replay. Sometimes I even wonder if some of the stats are just bots, and like I really don't know. So, when I make a podcast, I want it to feel fulfilling. So, uh, and I've been really scraping the bottom of the barrel with some of the episode ideas. Did those Space Jam spin-offs, which were fun to be fair, but um, I feel like they were kind of reaching. And the latest one, Morbius 2, it's Morbin time. Like that was really scraping the bottom of the barrel, like to be honest. Um, and I'm sure there are probably some ideas that the few of you who listen may have wished could have been covered, but I gotta be good to myself and all the stuff going on. So yeah, the podcast, a delayed replay, will be winding down for sure. And then anything else that happens, it'll depend on a variety of factors. So that's my long winded way of saying what's up. And yeah, I know that this is April Fool's Day when this comes out, and each delayed replay episode has in itself felt like an April Fool's Day thing. But this is very much real. I guess in that sense, I'm subverting the April Fool's Day thing. But yeah, I'm just kind of at a loss for words. I knew this would be tough to record, and um, I'm just putting this out uh tomorrow. Like I'm recording this the day before it's supposed to come out, so yeah, I'm just trying to remember if there's anything I've forgotten that's important. But yeah, and again, I'm like really grateful for those of you who have tuned in and listened to the delayed replay. Even after the podcast finishes, maybe you'll re-listen like every once in a while. But yeah, that's pretty much where all of this is heading. So I know it's kind of a downer, but life goes on, and you just gotta go where life takes you. So the next episode coming out, one of the pre-recorded ones, like I mentioned, is gonna be about sorry, it's gonna be on Wonka, the Willy Wonka origin story movie starring Timothy Chalamet, and then uh, possibly within that same episode, or maybe I'll make it a mini episode separate. I'll experiment with it and see how what works better. But talking about a recent movie, um, I'm I'm kind of debating whether it should be like the newest movie I see. I'm thinking of seeing the new Dungeons and Dragons movie and John Wick Chapter 4 sometime soon, or if I should kind of work backwards and start with other things I've seen uh, a little bit less recently, but still somewhat new, like Scream 6. But yeah, I'll decide, and it'll be in the episode description and whatnot. Um, but yeah, and if you've listened long enough, you know how to contact the podcast and what else I'm on. But I'll link them all in the show notes. It's kind of a lot to say right now, and it doesn't quite feel like the right vibe to list everything like I do usually. So yeah, and again, thanks, and uh, without further delay, have a good day. You're still here? The episode is over. Come back in 2 weeks and listen to the next one.